Approval of an amendment, number 1, to the legal services agreement with Hanson Bridget LLP, increasing the not-to-exceed amount by $500,000 for continuation of legal representation in the 49ers SC Stadium Company LLC versus Santa Clara Stadium Authority arbitration, and approval of an appropriation of $500,000 from the Santa Clara Stadium Authority fund balance to the Santa Clara Stadium Authority others expenditures account. Any discussion on that, City Attorney? Anything to say?
No.
Okay.
Any questions?
Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion from the audience, from the public? Seeing none, lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. The next is approval of an appropriation not to exceed $99,840 from the Santa Clara Stadium Authority fund balance to the Santa Clara Stadium Authority other expenditures account, and approval of the agreement for professional services with Wilson, Eyring and Associates to conduct noise monitoring of Levi Stadium and the 49ers practice facility.
I had a question.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Thank
or
you.
Stadium Authority Member O'Neill, sorry about that.
So, one thought I had, or a question I had was, in looking at the poles, and I don't know, these are monitoring devices mounted up on a pole, either a existing pole or one that we would place. So my thought is in that general area, like there, during the recent hearing of the new master plan for the Great America Theme Park, there were some questions that came up about noise and all that. And so I was wondering if at some point perhaps it would be, if we could consider, even though this is Stadium Authority, adding another one of those. It wouldn't be very far to add a noise monitor for Great America. Is that possible?
Sure, that's possible. Noise is one of those interesting sciences that in part it'll be. That's why we have the consultant on board to help us determine, if we can, with the source of the noise. But certainly we can add monitors if that was the council's direction, to try and track some noise coming from Great America.
Or
If and
we
when-
could do add-ons, because I know the folks from Great America said that they hadn't received complaints. We heard some things from the neighbors, so like, maybe if we get this going and it looks like it's working well, and that, the possibility that we could expand the contract.
Sure, that's certainly a possibility. I would assume, though, that at the point in time that there might be additional activity from the master plan that Great America is pursuing, that it might be a little further out.
Okay, great, thank you.
We do have, because this was a direction from council, we do have a little presentation if you want to talk about it from a public perspective, or we can pass on the presentation.
I think we should probably have it. Stadium Authority Member Mahan.
I just had a question on Councilmember O'Neill's suggestion, which is a good one, but that would be paid for out of Stadium Authority funds.
Well, that's what I wasn't sure how we would sort out I would think
Would
that
be
if
paid
it's
out
Great
of-
America, it would have to be paid out of the general fund, or maybe we can get Great America to pay for it.
Well, we can refer that back,
Yeah.
because I think
Correct.
that's a good idea.
So if we could have the short presentation, and I had a question because it's $99,000. Is that for the equipment and the monitoring, and is that for only a year? So that was my question. That seemed like an awful lot of money for 4 stations for a year. So, presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Andrew Crabtree, Director for Community Development, and I'll just go through this very briefly and answer the question. So the Stadium Authority in August provided direction to staff to embark on a number of activities related to addressing noise concerns for both the stadium and the 49ers practice facility. One of those was to develop a noise monitoring program, and so staff took the information that the council had provided in the form of a memo and contacted a number of consultants who do this type of work in the area, received some proposals, and of those, we're recommending the Wilson Eyring contract, which sort of fell in the middle price-wise. and they have a very solid reputation in this field. Just mentioning in terms of background, one of the things that was also done at that time was to create a new website with an opportunity for noise complaints. We received one complaint in August, and we haven't received any since then formally through that process. And then the proposed scope in front of you is for 1 year. The scope includes sort of an initial assessment period during which we would interact with the consultant. They would give them an understanding of what our objectives are. We could discuss how we look at different possible noise sources that are contributing to noise, making sure that the equipment is sensitive, so it's not just recording noise, but we have some means of understanding what those sources are, and design that, identifying locations and so forth for those monitors. They would then be installed for the 1 year period. We would have real-time web access to the information that those monitors are receiving. So if we wanted, to check on that, we could, as well as they would prepare some reports on a monthly basis that would be their professional analysis of what those monitors were receiving. The contract amount does include their cost for leasing the equipment, for leasing these monitors as well. So that's the basis of the cost. We had 3 proposals that we received in the end from the 5 we contacted. One was for about $130,000, I believe. The other one was for a little bit less, but this one was our recommendation. And
So how will they report to the Stadium Authority?
So they would be preparing monthly reports, which we can then bring to the Stadium Authority.
So if we're having issues that are happening on, multiple days, I would imagine we'd want to get reports as if there's an unusual amount of activity or something in a neighborhood or through one of the monitors, and who selects where the monitors go, the 4 monitors.
Well, the consultant's going to make a recommendation as to where to place those monitors, and that would be in that initial assessment. If it's the desire of the Stadium Authority, we could bring that in front of you to review before we embark on.
Okay,
further.
so if we could look at that and maybe talk to the consultant about how we would want to be noticed based on certain thresholds of activity.
Certainly.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody? Okay, thank you very much. Any member of the public like to speak, please come forward.
Good evening. I had a question on, this is only for a year, but for a long-term strategic plan for monitoring in general. About probably a year ago, maybe it was more than that, this came up before you guys, and you talked about what kind of infrastructure, especially on the north side where there's been a lot of new activities going to happen with City Place and the stadium. And I talked about a company called Anycom, which is their traffic light mounted devices that sit on top, kind of like a box that sits on top. And you can hook all kinds of things up, noise monitoring, cameras, and actually have a whole network of infrastructure, wireless infrastructure, so you can have a new form of connectivity. San Jose is very limited. I've been trying to do this in San Jose, or at least have them look at it in San Jose, because they're doing pilots. Unfortunately, because PG&E is a PUC, it's a nightmare to get anything done on the light poles. But since you guys own the light poles and the energy that goes into them, you have a lot of flexibility. So I don't think this is appropriate for a 1-year contract. It's more of an infrastructure play long term. But maybe this area, maybe it's when City Place starts to get built or something like that. You can look at what kind of infrastructure you can put in there to do these kinds of monitorings as permanent, so you don't have to pay a consultant to come in after the fact when something happens. I will say that what I've heard in Sacramento, where they started deploying this, the policy is the most important thing. It's not necessarily the equipment. There's lots of equipment you can do, whether it's Anycom or other companies, but it's the policy around how you use the data and what data it captures and how it's, and who's going to have access to it, whether it's just PD, whether it's your staff, whether it's public. If you do that work up front, that'll save you time. Then it's just a matter of implementing. But that policy work takes time and has to be thoroughly vetted. So that's just what I've heard.
Very good suggestions. Thank you.
Sam Hagag here. And before I begin, I would like to ask if all council members and mayor can not look at their computers and hear the public when they're giving their ideas and thoughts. So this is a very welcome thing to see proposed here tonight. I have one question and a few thoughts on it. First, why is the Stadium Authority paying for this? I mean, since the 49ers are the ones exceeding the noise levels that we have set in our noise ordinance, then why aren't they the ones paying for it? Also, I mean, since noise was certainly a part of the EIR and part of the mitigation for it, why wouldn't this be considered a part of the construction costs of the stadium? To compare it to a similar snafu that happened with the Creek Trail and how the pedestrian bridges were improperly constructed, it should also fall under the construction costs of the stadium. So regardless of how we approach this, my first question is, why are we the ones paying for this? Second thing is, the vendor proposal states, and I quote, "The SETI Media website enable authorized users to view the data and hear the audio recordings easily." So I'd like to request that the live monitoring website be made available to all the public via the city website. In other words, it shouldn't be just limited to city authorized users. We're all authorized residents. I mean, not only would that provide openness and transparency in the process, but it would also help to ease nearby residents who'd like to verify what the noise levels are if they're hearing the noise. Third thing is, I'd like to request that the period of monitoring exceed the proposed 6 to 12 months. There's no reason to believe that the 49ers would hush, during those 12 months and then go back to normal behavior after. Also, given our track record of a new coach, every time the wind blows in a different direction, different coaching styles could exacerbate the noise levels differently. It's like when I tell my girls to go to sleep and they know I'm right outside the door, they get quiet and they pretend they're asleep, and as soon as I walk away, they get right back up and play. The noise ordinance isn't in effect for only 12 months. It's in effect all the times, including in the past several years when Manco violated the noise ordinance as a habit. So I also want to finally echo Councilmember O'Neill's suggestion of a similar noise monitoring program for our great America. You know, last time it was talked about, there were quite a few numbers who are upset, and they were strictly upset about the issue of noise, so it'd be a huge benefit to them. I know it has nothing to do with the Stadium Authority, but I would appreciate by consensus if you guys bring it to another council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I think a lot of those issues will be taken care of when we actually have the noise consultant here and we figure out how we move ahead with we are. And I'm not sure about the question of who pays for this. I know it's the Stadium Authority. It says coming from some other account. I don't know what account that's coming from, but I don't know if we have any authority. Maybe we can just refer that back to the city attorney to look at our contracts if there's noise nuisance being caused, if they should pay for it, if it comes under the non-NFL expenses, we put it in the pot, or, what happens there. So, but I think what's important, and I know our community out there would like us to at least monitor what's happening now. So this is a step in the right direction. I suspect it's going to last longer than a year. It's probably going to be more of a fixture out there in the future than not. I like the idea of the, the more of the wireless, high-tech monitors, on our poles that do more than that for security reasons and other things for the future. So I think that's something we're definitely going to have to look into, especially as we develop that whole area in City Place. I think that's something that's going to be necessary in the future. So anyways, is there a motion and a second? I couldn't remember. Okay, motion and a second on the floor to approve. And then that referral back to the city attorney or manager's office about the payment. Motion a second. Lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Thank you for that. Next, we have boards and commissions for action. The Cultural Commission, minutes of November 7th, request to note and file. Also, a recommendation to release annual Cultural Commission funding of $46,132 as discussed at the September 27th, 2016 joint meeting. Ruth, I had a question. I think there's an update whether or not that $46,000 was in the 2016-17 budget, or do we refer it to the 17-18 budget?
Originally, the request was, from the Cultural Commission, was to add this amount of money into the 16-17 budget. However, we did get a communication back from the chair of the commission in January, basically that the commission is not proceeding with one of the events on their list, the Tour de Globe event. And so with that event not using funds, they're reallocating funds, so they're not now requesting additional funds for the 16-17 budget, but definitely are looking for an enhancement through the regular budget process in the 17-18 budget.
So do we refer that request to the recommendation to the 17-18 budget?
Yes.
Okay, so it's noting filing the Cultural Commission minutes and referring that to the 17-18 budget hearings? Okay. Motion second on that. Any member of the public want to speak on that? All right, lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Next, we have public presentations. Any member of the public would like to speak? Please come forward. Now's your time. Oh, and we have cards too. Thank you. Oh, ho, ho. I know what's coming.
You should have been first.
I'm Marion
Everybody's
Crompton.
here.
I'm with the Santa Clara Women's League, and I'm here to talk about Showtime, which is a fundraiser for the City of Santa Clara Senior Center. I was here last year when the Santa Clara Women's League presented a check to the council for $15,000. At that time, I encouraged the council to become more involved with Showtime and to help us raise more money for the City of Santa Clara. We have offered cameo appearances for the council members for each performance, and as of today, Mayor Gilmore and Councilwoman Watanabe has responded that they will act in a performance. Showtime will be held on Friday, March 3rd, Saturday, March 4th at 7 p.m., and Sunday, March 5th at 2 p.m. The price for Saturday night is $7 for an adult, $5 for a child, and $20 for a family pack, which is 2 adults and 2 children. Saturday and Sunday prices are $10 for an adult, $5 for a child, and $25 for a family pack. Tickets are available at the Community Rec Center on Kiley and at the Senior Center. The title of this year's melodrama is called Wills, Thrills, and Spills, or If There Is a Will, There's a Way. Howard Hughes, the billionaire, dies and his will is lost, and the search for the lost will and heir will lead to many dastardly deeds by the villains, putting numerous heroines in jeopardy. Is there a way to save Hannah, her 3 adopted mothers, and 2 Carmelite nuns from certain death on the railroad track? Your support, laughter, cheers, and boos are needed to let the villains know how you are onto them. Showtime is a very family-oriented environment and a good bargain. 2.5 hours of entertainment for a few dollars. I hope that all the council members will consider performing, and if they cannot perform, will encourage their staff and department heads to come out and support Santa Clara.
Oh,
That's
great.
fantastic. And I know Councilmember Watanabe isn't here tonight, but she actually challenged me a little bit ago, so I don't know if she's listening right now. She's home ill. But she said that she would be able to bring more people to the event than I would. And I took the challenge, so.
I like that
Kathy, if you're listening, all my kids play on a lot of soccer teams with a lot of people. I know your daughter's in basketball, but there's more players on a soccer team than there is on a basketball court. So the challenge is on, Kathy.
That's great.
Yes, so
That's
we're
great.
excited about it, so I hope everyone, it's a lot of fun, so I hope everyone will be involved. And you shamed us last year.
I
So
did.
thanks for coming back again.
Okay.
We appreciate it, thank you. Rick?
Well,
Yes.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. I'm Sheriff Sam from Doomstown, and I'm here to ask you all for some help. In a couple of weeks, there's a passel of bad guys coming to Doomstown. Yeah, we're forming a posse to help bring these bad guys to justice. And if a few of you would come down each day and help, it'd be greatly appreciated. And come and see me when you all come. My deputy's going to show you the ropes how to be in the posse. I'll swear you in, and you can each help catch those bad guys. You know, I think there may be a reward for those bad guys. So any money that's raised, we're going to be donated to your Santa Clara Senior Center Health and Wellness Program.
Yay.
Yeah, let's hear that. That's a good applause one. Woo-hoo. Yeah, and I'll look forward to seeing y'all come help the first weekend in March. Y'all come now. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
All right.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
I did have a
Councilmember
comment, yes.
Mahan?
Yeah, thank you for being here promoting that show. It's a good cause, it's a good show. I would challenge the other council members to appear in it, and our elected chief of police, and our elected city clerk. I've done it before, it's a lot of fun. I do it this year, but I'll be in New York watching my son graduate from the CIA. The chefs, not the spies,
All right.
but otherwise I would do it myself. And every one of you should do it. It's fun.
Yeah, there's room for all of you. It's just a little small part. We'll train you in about 15 minutes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. If you want to come forward, and then I have Alex Nguyen and Eugene Bradley also.
Hossam Hagag here. I don't know if the chief is feeling a little bit of pressure here. We got a new sheriff in town, it looks like. And I can't help but think if this is a metaphor for what's happening in our city, but no, hopefully not. I wanted to talk about community input meetings. I sound like a broken record. And last Thursday, there was the community input meeting like I mentioned earlier, for Monroe, 2330 Monroe, the affordable housing project on Monroe and San Tomas. And my humble feedback on that was I think it could have been a lot better. And I think there's enough blame to go around and misconception to go around. But from members of the community who kind of came in with ideas about things that were just not accurate, not factually accurate, and maybe the city could have done a better job at just very in the beginning outlining step by step so that it could kind of clear up that confusion. But I think the biggest thing that came out of that, and there's another community meeting happening this Thursday, and I really, really, really hope that they learn from the mistakes of last week, that the meeting should not have ended at 8 p.m. There were 150 people in this room. There were about 200 more people in the cafeteria overflow. And there were a whole lot of people who wanted to talk, the meeting was just cut at 8 p.m. arbitrarily. There was no reason for the meeting to be cut at 8 p.m. other than just for people to go home. But when 350 community members come out to speak, some in favor, some not, some in favor, many against, opposed, they're taking time out of their evening to come here. They're frustrated. They want their voice to be heard, regardless of, whether or not we want to go home at 8 p.m. or not. And not letting them speak makes them go home more angry than when they came. Even if what they said has already been said by other members of the public, it doesn't matter. The meetings should go for as long as at least every person gets one opportunity to speak. And then if there's not enough time, then people can't speak for a second time. And that's my thought. And I hope Thursday's community input meeting does that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that input. Alex? Welcome.
Hello, welcome, Council. So Ron Diardon Sr. earlier in the meeting talked about how Santa Clara has so many great things about it, but it has an inferiority complex to San Francisco. I think Santa Clara has so many great things about it as well, but unfortunately he is right, at least in one aspect, in terms of affordable access to the internet. San Francisco is way better than Santa Clara in that respect. In San Francisco, you can get AT&T, you can get Comcast, but you can also get Astound, you can get WebPass, you can get Monkey Brains, you can get 100 megabit per second fiber optic service from Sonic for $40 a month in SF. In Santa Clara, most residents, you only have two choices, AT&T or Comcast. I'm lucky enough to live in an area where I can get Sonic. It's affordable, but it's short of high speed. I can VPN into work okay, but taking online classes, that's just kind of a struggle for me. Streaming Netflix, I tried streaming the last city council meeting. That was not as good an experience as it could be, however good an experience a city council meeting can be. But a little while ago, Google Fiber was going to come to Santa Clara, right?
Right.
What happened to that? So late last year, Google, as wealthy as a company as it is, said, they're going to pause that. It looks like that's pretty much dead. So is it dead? What's happening with that? Is anything happening with that? If, as the sign suggests, it is dead, what, if anything, is the city doing to ensure that Santa Clarans have better choices than just AT&T and Comcast?
Thank you. I don't know if we have our Gaurav here and awake. I don't know if there's any comments to that about Google Fiber or anything, or city manager's office.
I think it's dead.
It might be dead.
Google Fiber is not proceeding right now. They've pulled back on many, if not all, of the communities. So we have had some of our agreements are still in place, but the program is basically inactive right now. The efforts to bring them
Maybe
in.
we can look at for a future staff item for our agenda, what we plan to do in the future, knowing Google Fiber and the position that it's in, what other things we can do to make it a little better for our community in that respect. I know it's not on the agenda, but for the future, if we can bring something back. Yes, thank you.
Good evening. Just something I heard after the labor discussion. Councilmember Caserta, thanks for understanding where I was coming from. But I hope you weren't thinking I was trying to say, if that's the case, I was going to complain about that. I wasn't trying to complain. I just was trying to understand. And when it didn't apply to me, I kind of backed away because I didn't want to take away from other people's time. But I'm perfectly happy to take any of those people that have displaced jobs. We're looking for people on a regular basis. So I didn't want you to think that I was in any way trying to not support that because it didn't affect me directly. You know what I mean? Or support it. That's all. That's all I wanted to clarify about that. One thing I wanted to ask is I've attended a couple of governance meetings, and in those meetings, it was discussed that there would be a couple items that would come before council, and I thought it was going to come in January, and here we are in February, and they still haven't heard those items. There are a couple of specific items that were discussed, and so I would just ask, when are those supposed to be scheduled to be heard? And I just wanted to also say thank you very much for your time and dedication into figuring out how we can do great things in this city. I really, really appreciate your time and dedication. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a Eugene Bradley? Did he leave already? Okay. You put something that's not on the agenda. All right. Reports of members and special committees. Are there any reports of members? Councilmember Kolstad?
Thanks, Mayor. I wanted to clear up some misconceptions about the city council. Last Thursday, there was an informational community meeting here in the council chambers. Mr. John Sobrato made a presentation about a proposed project that would provide housing for homeless people. And City Manager Batra and Deputy City Manager Tamara Haas and Community Development Director Andrew Crabtree all gave excellent presentations describing the project. The reason for the meeting was to provide information to the community about this proposal. Several people in the audience, in kind of a loud and abrupt way, asked, where's the mayor? Where's the city council members? Why aren't they here? And I wanted to clear that up. I think a lot of people, they realize that we're required to be here on Tuesday nights at the council meetings, but last Thursday was not a council meeting, it was an informational community meeting. In addition to coming here on Tuesdays, these council members all sit on committees that deal with local issues or regional or even statewide issues. And just to set the record straight, Mayor Gilmore and Councilmember Watanabe and Councilmember Davis were out of town last Thursday representing the city at the League of California Cities meeting. In addition, Councilmember Mahan was out of state. Councilmember O'Neill was representing us at a VTA Board of Directors meeting. And Councilmember Caserta was in the conference room here negotiating an agreement between another developer and several organized labor leaders. They were all working and doing what they're supposed to be doing. I was the other council member, and I came to this committee meeting that was in this chamber. So it was not out of disrespect. It was out of the fact that they were doing their duty, what they're supposed to be doing, instead of coming to this meeting. Now, Thursday night, it was mentioned there's going to be a meeting at 6 o'clock over at the library, and it's about another proposed development. My guess would be that several of these folks are going to have conflicts and not be there. And then, once again, it's not because they disrespect the process, it's because they're doing their job, standing there watch someplace else. So that's just the way the council was organized, and that's the division of labor that we all have agreed to. So that's why there weren't 7 of us sitting in here listening to the presentation of the staff. I just wanted to clear that up because I've heard a few things on email and voicemail that the citizens were dissatisfied with our performance. Everybody was at work that day. So that's all I wanted to say, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other comments? Committee, Councilmember O'Neill?
Yeah, I'll just make, as I mentioned last week, Director Rockama, myself, and some other staff from Silicon Valley Power went to Sacramento for our annual legislative day. And we, had the opportunity to talk to people that are like the legislative staff and folks from the governor's office and people that are connected to the Energy Commission, as well as meeting with we were able to meet with Senator Bell and Senator Wachowski's office and Assemblymember Chu to talk about a lot of energy issues. And as we touched on with the Climate Action Plan, some of the issues are going to be how are we going to accelerate our transfer to renewable energy sources. And they literally, just that morning, were saying that there may be requirements coming about setting goals for 100% renewable energy sources. So we're all going to have to really work hard to get there. It's going to take a while, but that was kind of the biggest issue in Sacramento. Some of the other issues that we've had, I think all of our departments are facing, what they like to call the silver tsunami of our workforce that is getting to the point where they want to retire. And we've certainly been seeing that in a number of our city departments. And so that was another one of the discussions with the state staff and, everybody that was there, like myself from city councils that have utilities. How do we attract young people to come into the careers of public service? So I think it's on all of us to be out there and particularly and to thank the staff that has chosen that career path and for all of us to encourage young people to select a life of public service.
Thank you. City Manager, Executive Director reports.
I just wanted to clarify one item. Earlier tonight, we talked a little bit about the El Camino paving project, and we did find some documentation that the project is still scheduled for this 18-19 year versus that, I think we mentioned 19-20, but it's scheduled for the 18-19 year. One of the things that, a couple things Caltrans noted, they noted that we have been pressing and they acknowledge that we want to accelerate the project. so they understand that we're going to be pressing them any which way possible to move that schedule forward. As they acknowledge that, they also acknowledge the fact that they've got a requirement for ADA requirements. They need to fulfill ADA requirements when they do projects like this. And so that presents a few more hurdles than they had originally anticipated in acquiring necessary right-of-way, possibly right-of-way in order to accomplish that. So at any rate, I just wanted to acknowledge that right now that the project is scheduled for the 18-19 year.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Reports of action taken in closed session. City Attorney.
There's no reportable action out of closed session.
Thank you. Adjournment. Councilmember Colstead has an adjournment for us.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we're going to adjourn in honor of John Bringell. John was a lifelong resident of the city of Santa Clara. He went to Santa Clara High, graduated class of 49. Then he joined the Navy when Korea broke out and served during the Korean War. He was a lifetime member of the American Legion and the Portuguese American Club. He was a city employee, worked here for 30 years, and he retired as a water superintendent. A loving husband, a devoted father and grandfather. We had a lot of laughs together. A guy could hit a golf ball 300 yards. He was hugely strong. He wasn't afraid of work. He'd loan you a tool and a heartbeat to help you do a job. He was just one of the decentest people I ever met, and he'll be missed.
And that's a motion in his honor. There's a second? All right, lights on the motion. That passes unanimously. Meeting adjourned. Before midnight, let's note.